Hey guys, welcome to another session of Epic 7. This is episode 4 of my procedural drafting guide, and I feel like this one has probably the most learnings. Round 1, round 2, some of the more exciting fights in my opinion. So if you're following this series, I already said that I'm attempting to cleave round 1, but sometimes, especially for this one, I choose to pivot. I choose to pivot down, and I think it is an important ability for the player to learn how to pivot properly. And you know, sometimes the draft just works out, so it makes me look more impressive. And I'm not saying that I can pivot perfectly, and I don't think anyone can. But as you can see there, the starting looks like a regular Ran cleave. We have our anchor DPS and a Ravi. So if they choose like a acid or something like that, it's going to not be as effective because they have to either ban the a Ravi or have to ban the speed imprint. But for this one, he did AOL, and in the past I have still cleaved even if they chose AOL. Ideally, when you can ban AOL plus Bellion, you have a stronger cleave. The issue is that he also took the Politis, so Politis is very strong into AOL, especially if you have AOL CDOM with Ran and Pavel. So right here, I'm just like, okay, he chose 2 disablers in terms of 2 debuffers, and then 1 potential either fully debuff, but I'm pretty sure it was like a DPS. So now I'm thinking about pivoting down, gives him 2 more slots for high damage DPS. So I'm thinking about pivoting down, using Lionheart Sirmia as one of the, like a tankier option. You can proc the Politis on purpose and guarantee yourself Emma Kawazu passive going off, and the Lionheart going off. So that's a flaw with Politis just picked as like a, you know, straight up counter. And if you don't have like, let's say, some sort of like other support for Politis, she ends up being sort of a dead pick. Both my Kawazu and my Lionheart are pretty bulky, and I also have a Ravi. So having that initial anchor DPS is really good. I only have 1 squishy hero, which is Ran. Now we just need to seal the deal with a last pick, depending on what his options for DPS is. As you can see that he's already amping up his damage with the RB pick, and I don't have a mitigation because he could think about banning the mitigation or banning the A Ravi. Although I think no matter what he picked here, if I picked mitigation last pick, his RB wouldn't have been a threat. He does choose Huayang though, so I don't think I opt for mitigation. That's the thing, right? Huayang is very good into Emma Kawazu, into Lionheart Sirmia, because she can basically one-shot. So both Huayang and Emma Kawazu, and Emma Kawazu is more conditional, are very good into like heroes that have roughly about 15,000 HP. So Archdemon Shadow, you know, Fire Charlotte, Lionheart Sirmia, those kind of heroes. So I choose the Arya because Arya is also an enabler for Politis, right? So my whole draft has been, okay, let's enable the Politis so we get some crazy mechanics going, right? So banning the AOL here makes the most sense because I went with the Arya. So I have either Ran to trigger Politis or I have Arya to trigger Politis. So I felt that this was a decent enough draft, although it could have been sketchy too. He knew that Emma Kawazu could one-tap anyone as long as I trigger his Politis. And then now this is pretty good because I have the first turn, right? So that means I can trigger Politis anyway. I can potentially kill off RB and the Politis on this turn because again, we don't know if the Politis is Bruiser or not. Or let's say degen, that's the name. So now we have a defense buff for Lionheart, so very low risk. And then 2-turn immunity buff, except on the A-Ravi because Astral Guide removed 1 turn. It was still a lose condition for me here. It's that, oh, you guys will see after. He did Gab though, but he had no souls. My Arya is almost dead at this point, but because A-Ravi had basically 2 pushes with Politis's S2 and RB's S3. So he got unlucky there. So you see that he didn't actually remove the debuff on the A-Robbie, which is why he's holding here, because he's just like, oh, okay, frick. I got unlucky, and he did, arguably he did. He had to basically stop my A-Robbie from going. So here I was thinking, okay, you know, there's Death Break on Hua Yang, I could kill her off right now, right? But there's only one target that's dead, and that's Arya. And because A-Robbie revives with 100% CR, Arya is really, really strong here, because no matter what Hua Yang did, she would never be able to kill the Arya on this turn, because all she would have is the Ubiri's Tooth proccing, and not the actual damage, since I have skill null. So again, I've been drafting Arya more just because I don't pre-ban Hua Yang anymore. I've said this in the other videos. So if you don't pre-ban Hua Yang, your A-Robbie has to be on Proof of Valor. If it's not, you're susceptible to just losing to her, and you don't want that. You don't want that condition. I did lifesteal a bit there as well, because I am on lifesteal. So the Ubiri's Tooth was nowhere near enough to kill it, even with the Vigor buff. So the RB already had died once, so there was no lose condition here, because we had too much damage incoming. So that pivot was pretty satisfying. Obviously, you know, I'm always practicing more and more on pivoting, but Ran A-Robbie first pick is very, very good. I just wanted to show example of that for sure, because like most of the videos so far when I did Ran A-Robbie, it was just like, oh, let's brute force cleave, let's see how we do. But I did want to like bring up like being able to pivot properly is important. You can't just stick to be like, okay, if I use Ran, I must cleave. I fought some very strong players that picked Ran third pick, and they swung into aggro. So like they had their anchor DPS up front. So he went with 2 anchor DPS, which, you know what, it's okay, but he needs some sort of enabler, right? So I went with C. Lilius. C. Lilius first pick is still the stronger one compared to like an A-Robbie. Because Bellion's banned, AOL is banned, that means Landy and Spectenny are both super strong options. Like I said, like what kind of AoE are you going to bring into this unless they're fast? What kind of AoE can you bring into this to kill a Landy and a Spectenny, right? Because both Landy and Spectenny can probably kill whatever that AoE is. So like Fire Charlotte, 2 taps. Lionheart Sirmia gets 2 tapped. Here I'm thinking about the Edda. Again, he doesn't know my ML Cowrick speed because of round 1. He didn't get to see it. So he can't risk the Edda, because otherwise Edda just wipes his entire team. Assuming that, like from his perspective, it was like, okay, is he banning the Amelia then? I have to ban the Edda. Psychologically speaking, if it has that 50-50 shot, most people ban the last pick. So we had to choose the Edda to force it. As you can see there, if he had banned C. Lilius, I could have lost too, right? Because his Amelia got the first turn. But he really couldn't risk it. Assuming the RB was even 250 speed, I still would have had to turn. Because my ML Cowrick is 264. Although the Amelia double resisted there, it's still better to just try sometimes. And this one paid off, definitely paid off. Because I had no target there that if I push back would have made any sense. Because Amelia's boost would supersede the pushback on C. Lilius. So that was the right play, and it paid off for sure. No attack buff on Hua Yang means that no one dies on this turn. We get a free push, and Amelia's not on things like a Warhorn or anything. And that Lionheart is dead here. So this is what I mean, like Lionheart into aggro is not strong at all. That's why I stopped choosing Lionheart as like a counter draft to C. Lilius. Because you'll lose on aggro almost 100% of the time. And the good thing is that we pushed the A-Robbie forward and pushed her again, so she loses her turn completely. No revive onto the Lionheart right away. Right here, there was two plays I could do. I can do S2 into Huayang, lower the attack, or S1 to push the C Lilius, which is the next turn, just to guarantee. I get lucky on this. This was not calculated, of course. I get lucky on that dual attack, and also lucky on this dual attack, and lucky on the hit. Luck is on my side for this fight, for sure. But I think from the draft, it was a winnable draft. So at this point, like, because my Landy isn't Guiding Light, no matter what he brought back, he would have lost. He wouldn't be able to heal the next turn my DPS goes, and it doesn't matter what DPS he brought, right? So if you think about Huayang back, like, she wouldn't have the S3. Emilia back, she may be able to hold down the fort a bit, like, with a bit of a heal, but it was pretty much over. Alright, on to round 2. So this fight is a pretty long one. This will be a 20-minute fight because we get to best out of 3. This player, like, I don't know like where he is on the RTA ranking, or either I misdrafted, but his drafting was very, very solid. I would say that this was one of the fights, like one of the rare fights where it's like is very clutch. Decision making, drafting was all pretty solid. Japanese player. He does have some kind of arena frame. I do believe that's a... I'm not really good with arena frames, but it's like a top frame, I think. I think it might be from the previous season. So Dian, Huayang, and then Acid. So his real counter cleave draft only started from slot 3. Which kind of makes sense too, because if you start committing to counter cleave, I can also pivot down from where I was, Ran and Arabi. He does go a speed imprint, so I'm thinking here like, okay, can he double speed imprint here, right? So picking a Pablo here becomes a bit risky because I would need 2 book holders for sure, because he has a Huayang, or I have to go with a speed imprint, which is not good either because then he could ban the book. So if he went double speed imprint, I think he would have won here. So I pivoted down a bit with a Specteni because right now he's locked to single target. And he does go with the right pick, right? So there's nothing I can do here. If it was a C-Dom, I don't think I win. He has 2 speed imprints. He banned the Arabi, which is also a smart play too. He took out the anchor because he has 2 squishy DPS. But the thing is, I left him 2 speed imprints. But I think in the current condition, if I had left one of the speed imprints, I still might have lost. And yes, the speed imprints on the Sid and the DN. The Sid is really fast there. It's actually snuck right behind my Pavel. So with the speed imprint, that Sid was probably looking around 286 or something like that. 285. So he pushes it first and Sid gets the turn, right? So like, it doesn't matter. Like, unless my politics had killed the Sid, I wouldn't have won. He also did the math. That's why he took so long. He did the math that politics doesn't even get to the turn, which helps his win, of course. Portrait Sid, he's buffed. And there's just no way that... And he has Sasha on Fire Shuri, of course. There's just no way I would be able to kill in time. He's a bit leggy there. It was a really good, like, he did really well in terms of drafting counter cleave. Like, I have to think on this feat too, because he was kind of, I would say, maybe behind for the Huayang and DN, but he's confident with his DN speed too. He knew that he could have popped me with a couple speed imprints. So there's a lot of play to anti-cleave. You can try to outspeed, you can try to bunker down. So I lose that one. And then now I'll have to pick up the pace, right? So I said this before in other videos, why I think cleaving round 1 is so fun is because I'm sort of confident that I can potentially win. Maybe, yeah, on the second and maybe the third round. So right now I'm thinking of like, what do I ban? Do I ban the Ran? Because obviously he's going to start, like I would think he was going to start banning my cleaving hero. So he took out the Politist, which is a pretty strong enabler into Ran A Robbie. At the moment, C Lilius is gone. His fast DN is gone. So I calculated that DN. It was pretty fast. It did have 2 speed imprints in that fight, but it was pretty fast. Even with the Soul Weaver Frenzy quote-unquote nerf. Not 15 speed anymore, but 7. So I'm okay with this. Like I said, I think, did I say it in this video? But Proof of Valor on A Robbie, because if you're not banning Hua Yang, she needs to be on Proof. I'm just waiting for his second pick. We both have our anchors, and just seeing if he swings into aggro or is he gonna play standard. He has Peyra available and Ran available for openers. He decides to go pretty tanky, maybe thinking I would cleave because, like I said, both Peyra and Ran are open. It just depended what I wanted to do, I guess. Politist gone, meaning that one of the very strong book holders is removed. At least one of my strongest book holders. I do have other book holders, of course. So I decided to play 1 for 1 here. We both have our anchors. We both have our knights. A-Ross is better than Troublemaker Crozet in most cases because he protects from AoE. But Troublemaker Crozet doesn't, unless he's on Adamant Shield. And then A-Ross is pretty strong into Hua Yang. Landy preemptively here, so he doesn't go Spectani, or he doesn't just, you know, choose Spectani and hope to ban Landy, right? Because we're thinking again procedurally. So if I chose the Spectani there, of course he can go Landy, which is riskier for me. Landy pretty good right now because we got a buffer as well, so Landy was a good choice. He doesn't have the DN for the anti-crit. Rimru's pretty strong, but picking Rimru means that he either wanted to ban the A-Ross or something. So with that knowledge, now he's locked to 1 slot for AoE. I choose Spectani. Spectani Landy combo very, very strong. I've said that before. It's enough to, you know, wipe out anyone with about 15,000 HP, some kind of bruiser. And he's running out of, like I said, last slot for AoE. So I had to come up with a pretty good last pick here to kind of seal the deal. Arya not super strong into Rimru. In fact, not good at all. But this poses a problem for his Rimru no matter what, right? So either my A-Ross can protect the Arya, or my Arya protects the entire team. So the A-Ross pick and Arya pick is not too bad into Rimru. It just depends on what he chooses as the last. And I think he's kind of realized that he's kind of trapped too, in terms of like what kind of options he has. So if you look at the team I have right now, right, it's pretty strong. Banning last pick, no brainer for me. I've said this in other videos. Procedural draft is that you're aiming to ban last. You're never trying to trap yourself into banning one of the first couple options. So yeah, so he took out the A-Ross, which makes sense, right? Because he has the Rimru. The thing is, he doesn't know my speed tuning. He decides to protect the Rimru. This attack buff means that I get full stack on turn 1. And I'm counting the buffs too, right? And it's more of like kind of a risk. I don't know what type of Rimru that is. Like, this is a high DPS. So if I soul burn and I get killed, it's not worth it. So we just go without the soul burn for this one. And because I don't have protection, it was on Symbol of Unity, it does kill. So obviously that was the right play. So now there's two things, right? He either has to, well, he really wants to legit try to kill Arya as fast as possible. And then, you know, cause so he's on a clock. I saw his HP. Rimuru is only 10,000 HP, and it was on Symbol of Unity. No other mitigation. So right here, I think he misplayed. I think he actually should have opted to try to do the stun. He didn't have a soul burn though. But this. I don't know. Actually, you know what? It may not be a misplay because he's banking on the 50-50, right? So he has a defense buff, he has protection, he has anti-crit. Like, what are the chances that the A-Ravi can actually hit? That's the only target I can hit at this point. I can't S3 Huayang. We only have a 2 stack. So it was a risk. So no, I would say that never mind. He doesn't misplay it. It was the proper play. I did get lucky here though, because I got Landy back. Arya, in my opinion, would have been a lot stronger though. Arya would have been a lot better. But Landy's not bad either. So in terms of the full draft itself, it was pretty aggro. I chose to soul burn this because Landy getting the death pen on AoE had more value than Spectenny soul burning at this point. I think for that hit, I should have actually went for the Huayang and lowered the damage a bit for Landy, but it's a 50-50 because I didn't want to miss either. He gets lucky. I would say this. He does get a bit lucky. This into the Landy, he dual attacks, so it does make me exposed 1 turn earlier than I would have liked. The lucky thing is that because Spectenny now on Destruction set, super high gear score, makes her bulky enough to survive the Huayang, and of course with the full 5 stacks on the defense, that was a pretty clutch fight. I think he played it very well actually, in retrospect, and I don't think I made a mistake. I don't think he made a mistake in that whole fight. So that was a really clutch one. Like I said at the beginning, this fight was specifically like one of the closest fights I had. He isn't ranked 270 at the moment, whereas in this part of the fight I was only ranked 670, 673. But the ranking doesn't matter honestly, because it only proves that either he's really strong or he played a lot more than I have. But proving, like looking at the draft, looking at his decision making, it was pretty strong. I took out the Huayang here, seeing that he doesn't feel comfortable with aggro and cleave. I chose A-Ravi, taking out the Huayang. It did cause some grief for me. He takes out the Landy because he doesn't want the aggro. So best out of 3 honestly is very exciting because you can see like 6 heroes banned. Of course this mode requires a higher pool of heroes, but it is very satisfying, right? Because all of your Wyvern, all of your Banshee farming, whatever, it really pays off in this type of format in my opinion. When you can expand your roster to a certain degree and actually be able to get results. Handguy first pick is not bad. Sea Lilith is gone. Pera not super strong into Handguy unless I'm, you know, going with like Ciceria or Edda or someone has like high aggro and momentum. A-Rob, the Rimuru pick is okay. Rimuru sometimes seen as a carry DPS or an anchor DPS, kind of like Huayang and A-Ravi, but he doesn't do as good of a job. So him picking it there is okay. A-Ross is very strong into Rimuru, so I usually do that. And at the moment he's not showing any sign he's trying to pick up momentum, so we're still playing standard to standard. Yeah, I was thinking about Amelia, but his Rimuru was pretty high damage. So I go actually full degen for this one. So I think up to this point, this is episode 4. I think up to this point, I haven't gone with Solitaria, ADS type comps, which I will for this one. I will say that, like, maybe it's the best out of 3. He does make a mistake in his draft. I'll note it at the end. So far, so good, right? Solitaria, Lionheart, and you got Rowana. Double pick. It's pretty good counter. So, like, good counter to my draft at the moment. Everything is like 1 for 1. So at the moment, I have a choice. Archdemon Shadow, pretty strong because Bellion is banned. So if she's Soul Burn, she ignores resist. She can seal Rowana. She can seal Lionheart. So she kind of becomes the force ban. So I had to think of a way to make my last pick like very strong. Like it had my last pick had to be like the force ban. And as I said before, I do like Emo Kawazu ever since his EE release. He is pretty threatening. I think people know his threat now because people have been killed by him. I always consider him, I call him a mini Huayang. Conditional Huayang because he has to be activated by the S3. So for example, if I chose a Specteni there, like he may have lost his Lionheart pretty quick, but he would have 2 AoEs, and no matter what, I had to not go down that. So this was really weird, right? So the SSB pick was the weird one for me. It was like, okay, are you trying to enable the Emo Kawazu? And if you're enabling Emo Kawazu, you lose, but if you leave Solitarian, you lose. So the SSB pick, I don't know what it was for. Maybe just for the defense break, but either way, he had no choice. Like that was the only mistake I think this player made in terms of the draft, right? Because he basically, like, I guess he wanted to ban last, but then there was Solitaria. So Rowana was the obvious option there, because to get the heal, to get the CR boost for his team, just a bit of aggro on that Lionheart Surmia could cause huge issues for me. I couldn't risk it, and yeah, that was definitely the play. So I don't think I outdrafted. I think his last pick was the only thing that actually stopped him from probably winning this fight. But again, remember what I keep saying, right? If you procedurally draft, you're never trapping yourself into that situation. I think he had a handful of options that may have made me force me to, you know, what do you call it? Oh yeah, and his Rimuru, right? We already saw that it was pretty squishy. So that dual attack, although not planned, was very lucky. So I was gonna say that yeah, he had a lot of. I think if he had more time, or he was more used to the comp that I'm using here, he could have chosen another threat and maybe a force ban, and then I had to leave the Rowana in. But most likely the Rowana was the force ban though. But I had ADS, I did have Emo Kawazu, so I think I was pretty secure, but I think he could have had a better option. So that Lionheart was on Sigurd's Scythe. She's not attack scaling, but Sigurd's Scythe in this fight proved to be pretty strong. I wasn't sure if it was on lifesteal or not actually, but there's a condition that happens later that she does get like full health. So I don't know if that's Sigurd's Scythe exactly, but it was pretty crazy. So I wanted to blind and you know do any debuff on the SSB. SSB had a risk of exposing my Solitaria, which realistically it could have been good if Solitaria was killed because that's his only enable for Lionheart, or I guess Aros S2. Sealing here didn't really matter, to be honest. I just want to do as much damage as possible. It's a bit too late. She already got the buff, so she'll cycle out of it. And this is a bad play for me. I shouldn't have soul burn this. There was no point. We don't need to steal SSB because the Solitary handles that. But nothing else was sealable. I shouldn't have soul burned. That was the mistake. No use to soul burn. So it does full heal. And I think actually it has to be a combo of Secret Scythe with lifesteal actually, for that kind of heal. I had protection, I had damage mitigation from Aros, damage reduction on ADS, and I had stealth up still, I think, for the Solitaria. Actually, I may have mistaken. It was interesting that the SSB actually landed a debuff though on my Solitaria, because my Solitaria has like 120 ER. So that SSB has a beyond normal effectiveness, and we're only in Frenzy 2, so the lucky thing is that it didn't land unbuffable on me, so I had the ability to go into stealth again, which means 50% damage mitigation. The thing with Lionheart is that she only has 2 turns in a row that she's enabled to do the S3. So for that turn, she had to sit one out and gain the fighting spirit all over again. And yeah, so Solitaria, like, picking Rowana into Solitaria probably stronger. Lionheart, not always guaranteed, as you see there. But hey, I chose Solitaria and ADS into quite an aggro draft, I think, because we're finishing this around Frenzy 3 or 4. So right here, like that Lionheart actually could wipe me if I didn't actually stun her here. So still luck, but I mean, if you're counting Abyssal Crown plus Solitaria's initial stun, I had a high chance of stunning her. So this was the end of episode 4. Hopefully you guys continue enjoying these the thought process for drafting, and you know, obviously it's my wish that I continue to grow in understanding the meta and drafting. Hopefully this is helpful for you as well. I'm gonna end this for the video recording. If you guys have Discord, check out the Discord server. Follow me on Twitter, subscribe to YouTube if you haven't. As always, thank you guys for watching, and I'll see you guys on the next episode.